I had been performing out on the road with a man named Bootsy Collins and Bernie Worrell in my past for two artists. One group was called Color Me Bad, and the other artist was Jeffrey Williams. And the bottom line was both artists were signed to Warner Brothers, but the bottom line was I got some very good advice from Bootsy Collins. I was such a fan of his. He's a bass player that plays for Parliament Funkadelic, James Brown. He had played at one point, and he's just got a history incredible. You could always look him up, Bootsy Collins. And Bernie Worrell, was the keyboard player for Parliament Funkadelic. So you like those songs, Flashlight and Tear the Roof Off the Sucker and all of this stuff. This was them, the Mothership Connection. It was just a great band. And they still are great, and they still rock and roll. But the bottom line is, I got some good advice from Bernie and Bootsy, which was at the time I wanted to start my label, and I wanted to really do my thing. And I had this conversation out in LA about, just doing it. And I think that, here's the thing about people sometimes. People can get you stuck and get you stuck in what they see you as and what they would like to see you as. But I knew for me, I had more skills than just drumming. I knew I had writing skills, vocal skills. I knew I could produce. I knew I could do things like this. But it was just me believing in that, So eventually, that it just came down to that. I had already started forming my company, Madman Productions, which was in New York, in Manhattan. And then when I went to St. Bart's, when I came to St. Bart's, I met a lady who just completely believed in what I was doing, and all of her family and partners. It's been an amazing ride. But the bottom line was, this was what was happening with Storyteller. So, Storyteller, I wrote Storyteller with another young man named Bernie Pelsmaker, who's a multi-instrumentalist. He's incredible. We had a lot of fun doing it, that's for sure. We definitely had fun. We toured. I did a couple of shows, a couple of festivals, a few festivals, I'll say, with it. And then pretty much after that, I was just so involved with the marketing of it, because with each of these albums, you gotta understand, especially me, I had turned down a deal with Atlantic Records, and I had turned down a deal with Verve. I wasn't interested in being a signed artist, and this is, back, like I said, in the early 20th century. I wanted to take Storyteller, and I wanted to market this on my own, because the marketplace was open for independency for music artists and, musicians. So I just went all the way as far as I could, with it. I had a lot of help, of course, from people, and one of the first persons who really put a dent in this whole entire thing, I gotta mention that company is called DMX Entertainment. DMX Entertainment is a huge entertainment company. And the person who called me when they were going to take Storyteller to do stuff, there were two big music moguls that called me about that. That was Clive Davis and Irvin Azard's people. Because they wanted to take Storyteller and let it be the first album that would cross into different genres of their company. 'Cause their company had handled Music Choice, which was that cable station on TV with all of the different musics from all over the world, Spanish music, Latin music, Russian music, African music, just everything, rock, pop, hip hop, funk, jazz. So whatever, they was handling it. And so they wanted to take the album and they wanted to let it be the leading album, because the unique thing that's about Storyteller is not only is it a contemporary jazz album, all right, but it's also an R&B, funk, and hip hop album. And I also have rock in there, all right? So I just did kind of like a world music vibe on it, because it had so many genres mixed, but I made sure each song was commercially inept. It's going to be easy for me to do the marketing for it. And so this is what happened. It was like, you know what? And they told me that over the phone. They said, this album has everything in it. And we actually like that. Do you have radio play now? Do you have this? And I said, no, man. I'm just a small time guy in my office trying to do all of the marketing for this thing. And, through the help of my company and my partners, just really trying to make things work. So took the album and they said, okay, here are the areas that we're going to market you in for you. We're going to put you in music choice. This is number one. We're going to put you in music choice. Okay, so that's number one. That means your album will be seen and it'll be on TV, on cable stations. And we're going to rotate it simultaneously. So every day, your album will come on. We'll pick one song from the albums, in our programming department. And we'll show this, give us a little bio on you. We'll do that. Okay, wow, okay, thanks. This is awesome. Then the second thing was, we're going to take your album and put it in the in-flight entertainment programs on over 78 airlines, almost 80 airlines. So we'll put you in regular rotation with that. So I'm starting to think, what? This is paying off. Sitting down, really doing the marketing on my own for this album. This is what it takes, and this is where it's at. This is the story. All right. So they did it in that area. So when I was taking flights, I was listening to my own stuff. I could hear some of the songs from here, La Chica Bonita, which is the song Storyteller, the main song, Hustler's Theme, just all of these songs that I had. And the other area that they wanted to do, there was only 2 internet radio stations. Okay, there was only 2 at this time. There was only, I think, Cyrus, and the other one was Pandora's Box. It was these 2. So they put me on those 2, and they really pushed like a lot. Okay, and from that, I received a call. Now, all of this is happening within the year of 2003. I received a phone call from another guy who was like, listen, man, I'm at MCA right now, and I'm getting ready to do a movie, and the reason why I'm here is because I have to put together all of these artists that, I would like to take some of their stuff and put in this movie. It's an independent film. It's about this, it's about that. It was like a gangster film about this guy. He comes out of jail and he's really trying to get his life together, and people are trying to pull him back in. But you have a song on here called Knee Deep Strong. And he's like, I'm sitting here, man, in the office right now, and I'm being blown away with these lyrics. Who's singing that song? So I said, listen, let me come and talk to you, and let's talk about some business. Let's do this. So I take a taxi down to the MCA building. I'm in there, and I'm talking to one of the A&R guys who's sitting right next to this guy who's going to do the film. And he's like, look, man, this is dope. Who's singing this song? And I said, the female, her name is Melanie Daniels. She's a gospel singer, but she's the first call each time for Michael Jackson. She's the first call for Mariah Carey. She's the first call for anybody in pop right now when they're putting together background singers. And I said, and on top of that, she's my sister. She's like a good friend of mine. And he said, man, you wrote this song? And I said, yes, I did. He said, it's just so positive, man, because basically Knee Deep Strong is a song about, not letting distraction distract you from your growth and positivity. That's what it's really about. Okay? And, just looking at that, I was thinking about that. I was just, when I first heard the track back as we was doing it in the studio, I just got goosebumps because I knew Melanie could vocally put the emotion in it that I needed. So this was the song. So he said, I'm featuring this song, man. Like, I want to feature this. So I said, fine. We talk business. We talk all the business part about it. So meanwhile, this thing was happening, and all of a sudden I got into a soundtrack. Now, this was via actually from another artist that I played with named Reese. And I mentioned Reese because at this time, we were going to be writing some songs together as a band, you know, and doing stuff like that. And that was very successful. But that won't be until the next documentary. We'll talk about that the next time. Because this is before that. All right? This is before my second album. So Storyteller, wow, man. Then I was going to do some festivals. I did a festival in Germany. I did a festival in France. And I was going to come back to France again. Let's see what else. I also did with this album, I also did a lot of shows in town. And that brought me to a festival that was happening in St. Bart's. It was called Blue Blues Festival. And I did that festival. It was big. And I did that festival where, you know, it's funny how life ends. And I just say that because at this time, you know, each challenge for me was going up and, you know, just proving. That's all. You're just proving yourself, and people want to see what you can do. And talent was raw. You know, New York was definitely raw. The scene on New York was always raw. Ever since I can remember, it still is. It's still the hardest hitting place in the world. You know, and it's not because I'm from there. It's just New York and LA and Detroit and, you know, certain parts of Nashville now, certain parts of Florida. The musicianship is in Chicago. It's just hard. You know, also Cincinnati, Ohio. Like, I could name some states, but the musicianship is just hard in the USA because for every musician, there's like a ton behind you trying to get the same job, trying to get. So you just gotta roll right, you know, or else it's just you get eaten by sharks, you know, and that's what you know coming in. That's what you know. So New York, NYC made, you know, this brother C. Will, you know, the drummer that he became and the musician that he became, now producing too. So the bottom line was, there I was with everything happening with Storyteller, and I did this festival here in an island called St. Bart's, St. Bart's Island, in the French West Indies. And during this time is when one of my partners came up to me and said, you know, I want you to see this. And I said, okay, let me see what you're talking about. He said, look at this article. So I opened up, you know, this Billboard thing. You know, Billboard. And there I was. It was my name, my company name, and the area that my album was on. It was smooth jazz, and then I was also in R&B. And I had my album in total had placed number 3 in independent artists, because they had, you know, Billboard is going through changes just like music is going through changes. But I was an independent artist that had gone through that, you know, being the first independent artist to hit, you know, just about to hit major radio. Okay, but I didn't. But I was still wrote about in an article of Billboard. It was like, these are the albums you need to watch out for. C. Will with Storyteller from Maiew Records, and, you know, I was, and this is right before the festival, so I'm getting ready to go on stage and play, and I'm sitting there going, yo, I am on a super high. This is awesome and great, you know. Wow, that's Storyteller. Now I'm gonna read some of the names that was in this album for me, and I need you to check this out because this album has a lot of weight with it. There's a lot of heat with this album, and I'll tell you why in a second. But the musicians who played on this album, it's like a book. You know, you open it up. Yeah, it's not just a cover. You know, you open it up and here you go. I got everything I was going through at the time. Pictures, all the collages of the different vibes that I had happening. And this is me literally on the A train going out to Far Rockaway. and I took a picture, and that picture became a part of the thing. It was raining that night actually, and this is a picture of me in Hawaii, Maui, because I was, you know, that's another set of story. But the bottom line is I had taken time off, you know, with everything that was happening and everything I was doing. This is the credits. Now you need to check out this picture, because in this picture is a guy named Bob Beamon. If you know your sports, Bob Beamon is the long run jump runner who held the record from 1967 all the way to like literally almost the 20th century. It was in the 90s, I think, that his record got broke, or early 20th century, something like this. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. But he was another inspiration that had talked to me and asked me, along with Paul Brown, and we went through different bass players, but we put together a trio. Al Brisbane, who was Bob Beamon's cousin, Al Brisbane, and basically we did a thing in New York to encourage the morale of public school students, you know, that was chasing their dream, which I thought this was awesome. You know, that we were playing for kids and just going from public school to public school in New York State, and that we was encouraging the kids, you know, and that this is what was happening. So I became very involved with that. And like I told you before, this is before this album. So I asked Bob, you know, I was like, man, you know, I want to record this album, but you know, everybody sees me as a drummer. You know, I had my little insecurities with me during this time, but he was like, man, go for that. You know what I'm saying? Go for it. Be independent. Be an independent artist. Do that thing. If that's the future, that's what's going on. Blah, blah, blah. So that was Storyteller. Now, I'm going to read the names, like I said to you earlier, of the people who were on this album. And you're going to notice something really cool and kind of funny. You're going to be like, what? Funny? You're crazy. Okay, first is me, my full name, Courtney Williams. And I was on drums, percussion, and musical vibes. So much happened in the studio. The studio is like my number one home outside of my home where I sleep. It's weird like that. But anyway, and Bernie Pelsmajor, which Bernie Pelsmajor and myself produced this album together, and he co-wrote, and I co-wrote on some of his songs, and then we put our songs together, and then I had the majority of songs on the album. So that's what's going on. He was a great producer, co-writer with me. It's awesome. Then I also have Bennett Pastor, who's a great keyboardist. I know if he sees this video, he's going to be like, God damn! Because that's my Brooklyn scene. You see, in order for me to record this, I was in Brooklyn the whole entire time recording this. Brooklyn, baby. Brooklyn, New York. So that's where it was at. And also, who else do we have? I had Carl Brown on keyboards. Great keyboardist. Great keyboardist. I had Dave Jones on bass. Now here's where it gets interesting. You're going to see this. Listen to this. Dave Jones on bass. Great bass player. Played for a lot of different artists. Also, Al Brisbane. Al Brisbane actually walked with me through a numerous amount of albums. You know, it wasn't just Storyteller. He did my next 4 albums. My next 3 albums that I would do, excluding one, because one I did on my own. That was the one where I was going to start singing and this kind of thing. So he did the next 3 albums with me. This is number 4, you know, starting number 1, but you know, he would walk with me through a lot of stuff. So Al Brisbane on bass. Also, I had Steve Moss. Have y'all ever heard of Steve Moss? Steve Moss is a great bass player. He's from Australia, and Steve Moss ended up playing for Alicia Keys. He did the first series of Alicia Keys tours. It was Steve Moss. Great guy, man. Steve Moss, and also Yannick Gwizdala. Now, everybody out there, you know Yannick Gwizdala, you know? Yannick Gwizdala is a great bass player. You could look him up online. He plays for everybody. Was everywhere, and he was actually in my trio that I had for about a year. He played with me in that trio, where we was doing different festivals in the States and all this kind of stuff. So if you check that out, already that's 4 bass players. But I'm a bass addict. I'm a drummer, so I love bass. That's one of my main things. I love bass, and that's one of my instruments that I love in the rhythm section. I love keys too. I love guitar too, and I love bass. I love them all instruments. But the bass gets me because I'm a drummer. So most drummers end up playing bass, and most bass players end up playing drums. It's wild like that. Anyway, also, now, here's something very special. I need to tell you how I do my stuff. Every time I do an album, okay, with the exception of my recent scores of albums because I'm going into another thing, but during this time period, it was really cool that I would take a guy who was very new to the scene and just inject him in one of my songs. I just felt like that was a cool thing to do. Also, it was a way to, show a young fella how, stuff is, and especially if he's coming up on the scene or he's trying to get in. I met a guy, man. This guy, now we're talking about guitar players that I had on my Storyteller album. This guy's name was David Phelps, okay? And I also had another guy named Stefan Hiller. Now, Stefan Hiller is the guy who I'm talking about. Stefan Hiller was like, he came on the scene in Nels, basically, because we were doing Nels after the band that left and pretty much did the Apollo. That was all those musicians who did the Apollo via the Showtime at the Apollo, the TV show. Most of those musicians left, and then they went there. The bass player and the drummer especially. Artie and who was on drums? He's gonna beat me up when he sees this. But yeah, him too. But that's my boy. But yeah, they would go on to the Apollo, and one night, it's funny how I got Nels because that was the hottest club at this time period in the town. Like from the 90s all the way into the 20th century. And I was playing. I was just in the audience, chilling, because I was just like, man, this club is hot. I would love to play here as a drummer, man. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. But they had, my boy, he's a nasty drummer, too, still to this day. And I remember there was a night where, an open mic night, their new open mic night, where the musicians didn't come through for whatever reasons. I don't know, could have been anything happening or whatever. And the guy who was doing the open mic, he got on the mic and he was like, is there a drummer in the house? And I was like, what? That's impossible. So I was like, yeah, I'll come. He said, before I got on the drum set, he grabbed me and said, now listen, can you really play? Because the drummer we got taking the place of the other guy, he is just not happening. So can you really play, man? Because we're sinking tonight. Like, everybody's starting to walk out. I said, yo, give me this song and give me 2 minutes in that song. That's all I need. He's like, okay. So we jamming, and I broke out into this solo, and I did my stuff. So that was that. He turned around before we finished the song. He said, did y'all like this drummer? So everybody said, ah. He said, drummer, you got this spot every Wednesday night. I was like, yes. So that's how I started playing. Anyway, so the guitar players were David Phelps and Stefan Hiller. Stefan Hiller, I believe Stefan Hiller was from North Europe, and he was new at Nels. He was doing the scene, and he was really trying to dig in. And sometimes, when you're new to something, the people make you really feel out on the outskirts, man. And that wasn't the cool. That was the not cool part. So during my album recording, I just took him and said, "Yo, I want you to play on my album," and just to give him some encouragement. And he was a good player, but just to give him that extra boost. And he loved it, man. He's actually the solo that you'll hear on the song La Chica Bonita. It's him. All right, who else do we have here? We have Reggie Hines. All right, Reggie Hines on saxophone. I'm laughing already because those of you who know Reggie, y'all know that this man is a showman. Period. There's nothing else to talk about. That's it. He's a one-man show, and he can play it like that. That's what's up with Reggie. Much love to Reggie. And Reggie was the saxophone player on my album. He was messing around. That's when the synthesizer sax came out. The synth sax. It was dope. So he did a lot of stuff, but he also did a lot of parts on the album. You'll hear that. I also had Melanie Daniels singing vocals, and like I told you about Melanie earlier, she was just an awesome singer. Now she's like one of the top gospel singers in the world. First call for Michael Jackson, rest in peace, when he was alive. First call all the time for background singing for him, and always for Mariah Carey, and featured with Mariah Carey all the time. So she was always in between so many tours and stuff. And then I had Sheldon B. Johnson, who is the deep voice, who introduced Sheldon B. Johnson actually introduces Will to all of the world, with his low tone speaking radio voice. This is Sheldon. So Sheldon is just a cool brother, man. Like, he just has this radio voice, and I had to have that. Because Storyteller is like, this mysterious character that comes out of nowhere. Even though I used my full name, Courtney Williams, I knew down the road I was going to change it and shorten it just to, have more of a shortened name. Also, DJ Stylus on turntables and scratches and sounds. DJ Stylus is the best DJ I could have ever gotten. I found DJ Stylus by playing with another artist named Nature, who's dope as well. DJ Stylus was just incredible. He lit up, because as a drummer, I was getting in it. First, I'm knee deep into hip hop. I love hip hop music. Sorry about that. I come from it, so how can I not like it? I'm the bridge from the very beginning of it all the way to what it is now. Now it's trap music playing and all of this stuff. So I'm digging on everything. I'm vibing on it all. But the bottom line is, back then, it was about the scratching, how fast you could do things. So you'll hear on the interludes on Storyteller that I have, DJ Stylus. And so that's the whole thing, man. I gave you a lot. And in the credits, you're going to be blown away about my credits, because I mentioned people and places and things, Parliament Funkadelic. I thank Bootsy Collins for the conversations we had and all that stuff. So there it is, man. That's Storyteller. Now, Storyteller was good because at this time I lived in the West Village, New York, downtown. And like I told you, I did all of the recording for Storyteller. I did all the recording in Brooklyn. Now, Bennett Pastor, who was one of the keyboard players on the album, along with Bernie, because Bernie can, like I told you, Bernie can play multi-instruments. But Bennett Pastor, I tracked at his studio, and then I mixed at a guy named Chris, his studio. Chris was still in Brooklyn. We was in a section of Brooklyn. It was dope. We were like near a park in this new section that was being built up, like this kind of like hippie section. And Chris, at the time, I took all the tracks to Chris, and then I also did interludes at Chris's place because he had the setup. It was sick. Chris's setup was crazy. It was all Pro Tools and this and that. And Chris was the first call for all of the remixes on everybody. Like, at this time he was remixing Beyonce stuff. Beyonce's group, because she was still in the group. Janet Jackson stuff, Q-Tip. I went there just to hear what he was doing. I said, dude, you're like rocking everybody, Chris. So you definitely got to mix, and master my album. He said, see, that's going to be no problem. We're going to love this. He said, because we're going to take your project because you're the only independent artist we've ever seen. Because normally we get the calls from Warner, Universal, and Atlantic, and all of this other stuff to do. So that's what was happening, man. That's Storyteller. Now you got to understand something else. Because of DMX, Storyteller actually charted at number. I was in the top 50 on Billboard with this album. So yes, I did see royalty checks. Yes, there was some money involved, but it wasn't a lot, and I'll tell you why. Because the deal that I did was a deal for exposure, and it did just that. It exposed me a lot, and that's how it was. It was my first album. I was new on the scene. I was digging the vibes and everything like that. So I just wanted to get down like that. I needed to get out there, and it took me places. It took me to Germany, France, Italy, the UK. I went to Russia through it. I went to some of the Caribbean islands, St. Bart's, Bahamas, blah, blah, blah. And then I also went to Africa and South America. That's what would happen on this album. So I hope you like this documentary. The next albums are going to get deep. And I also want to mention something else. On this album, it's a very strange thing that happened to me. Just as a person, like, I'm a very spiritual cat, and I just believe in God, and my thing is, there were things happening to me, like there were just people, like I was losing people. And when I say losing people, I don't mean death losing. I mean, they were just not talking to me anymore. They were just not communicating with me anymore, or situations was just deep. And I'm definitely going to say that's because when you do something and you do something successful, it shocks a lot of people. A lot of people are in awe about your success. So one of the things I want to end this documentary with is whatever you're doing that's successful, and you're out there and you're in the mix, just don't be distracted and don't be dismayed by people who are close to you. You think that are close to you, and then they do something that just bugs you out when you're on your stream and you're on your journey to success. Don't let it flip your mind, and don't pay attention to it, because these are people who are going to come in and out of your life. They go and that's what happens. That's it. That's all. There ain't no explanation behind it. You can sit there and tell me, yeah, but you know what though? And what if that? Don't. No. I'm a light cat. I'm very light on my feet. Like, they're coming in, they're probably going to be on their way out, because they don't understand your vision. They don't understand your focus like that. And then on top of that, you know what I mean? They might try to distract you or something like this, but it never works out. You always get to where you're going, because the energy that you would put into that thing that's so positive, would normally just manifest into something beautiful. So keep on the right track. Yo, my name is C. Will. This has been the documentary. I hope you liked it. I hope now you know a little bit more about me. I'm going to keep y'all on edge all the way until the Music Hero Spectacular. Get ready for the website on C. Will. Get ready for the website on Music Hero Spectacular. That's right. That's mine. Copywritten and trademarked. So it's going to be a lot of mind blowing in 2018. And this is where we're going. Peace and love. I love you guys. I love you for coming through and just listening to this, taking some time. I hope you was inspired. I hope, you got something out of it. Just keep doing what you're doing. And peace and love, man. Peace.